Hey everybody, it's Fireman here. I'm talking about cryptocurrencies again today. If you go back and look at my first video of Bitcoin, I think the price has increased by like a factor of 3 or 4 since I made the video. That'll change depending on when you're viewing this just because of the volatility of Bitcoin. But anyways, I wanted to talk about other cryptocurrencies because I've been watching them and using them for a very long time. And a lot of people don't really understand them. They're overhyped in a lot of ways. They're underhyped in a lot of ways. And I just wanted to talk about a couple other cryptocurrencies, ones that I call second generation cryptocurrencies that I think are going to do very well. So the first one I wanted to talk about was Dash. Now this one, it's also called digital cash. It used to be called dark coin. This one was one of the first second generation anonymous cryptocurrencies. Now, what I mean by an anonymous cryptocurrency is I mean one that's fully private. Now, if you're watching this, you've probably seen videos talking about how Bitcoin it's a private currency online that is used by criminals. Well, Bitcoin's not private at all. I can actually look up different individuals within the Bitcoin community that I know of personally, and I can show you their wallets and be like, yeah, that guy's a millionaire in terms of how much Bitcoin he owns. I can tell you exactly how much money he has. I can tell you certain transactions. I can look at them on the blockchain and tell you who did what transaction and what they bought, and that's kind of weird if you think about it. Bitcoin's pseudonymous, which means it's not anonymous. It just gives you a pseudonym, but if you know whose pseudonym is what, then you can actually trace everything on it, and that's really not a good thing in a currency, because if you think about it, imagine if you were buying a house and everybody knew exactly how much you paid for your house, and you could just look up how much anybody paid for their house, and you could look up every house they had ever bought and how much they had paid for every house they had ever bought. That's just kind of weird. So there are certain transactions, financial transactions, that you want to be completely anonymous. And so the second generation of cryptocurrencies, the ones that really have done well, are these anonymous coins. And I'm going to talk about all these. Again, Dash was the first it was the first real second generation crypto or anonymous cryptocurrency. And what it really did was it used basically the CoinJoin technology, which makes it impossible to trace transactions on the network by, instead of sending one transaction directly to the final receiver, you send it from the initial receiver, split it up into a bunch of small amounts, send it all throughout the network, and then eventually send it to the final destination. And so that's what Dash does. And so it's completely private like that. And the thing about its privacy is you can still use it in the way that Bitcoin is, and you can have transactions that are public. So you can do transactions that you can have people record and do publicly, or ones that you do privately. That's a really big thing. That's one of the big things that makes anonymous coins very good. Another anonymous coin that came out about the same time as Dash was Monero, but one of the problems with Monero is it's hard to use publicly. So that's kind of a problem. But anyways, we're not talking about Monero here. We'll get to that one too. I do think Monero is actually a very good coin. But the next thing that really makes Dash very interesting as a coin, from it being fully private, is it uses proof of stake and proof of work. Now, proof of work is just the normal mining procedure that Bitcoin uses, where you have super powerful, fast computers work on math problems super quickly, and basically they get rewarded for Bitcoin for doing it. I'm not going to go over exactly how the mining process works. That's a full video in and of itself. But a proof of work is a very solid method of having a coin. Proof of stake is, most of the time, it doesn't work. It's very hard to get proof of stake that has any use for the network, but Dash actually does it very well in their use of it, because their proof of stake is actually given to coins in what are called master nodes, and these master nodes keep the network anonymous. So it gives coins to master nodes. It's basically paying master nodes for keeping the network anonymous. So it's proof of stake. It's not like it's just giving users who hold coins new coins for nothing. It's giving them new coins because they're keeping the network anonymous. So it's actually providing a service to the network. So it's one of the few proof of stake I guess, applications in a cryptocurrency that actually offers something to the network. And because now you both have a mining network and a proof of stake masternode network, there are actually two layers of security on it, and so Dash actually is should be very secure because of this. One problem is that it does lower the total number of, or the total ratio of the block reward that goes to miners, so transaction fees might rise a little higher than normal. But even right now, transaction fees are very low. If you just want to send Dash publicly, it's like 4 cents, and I think if you want to use their CoinJoin technology and make your transactions private, I think it's about 20 cents. So 20 cents to make your transactions private, that's not bad at all, especially considering that most of the transactions you keep private are for they're either very large transactions, like purchasing a house or a car or something that you just keep private just because you don't share that information with other people, or it's things involving like health or things like that. And even those things, those are still usually pretty expensive, so only spending 20 cents for something that you want to keep private, it's really not much to pay anyways. And then finally, they've got the masternode network, and we talked about this before when we were talking about the proof of stake, but why this is interesting beyond just offering a useful proof of stake application in a cryptocurrency is that if you just hold on to Dash, you get paid through the masternode network. Okay, you get paid through the masternode network. Now this is important because it offers you a way just to if you have Dash that you're not going to use, because the thing that makes this so that the only way you can be in a masternode network is if you don't actually use the Dash. So you send the Dash away if you're not using it. So it's just a savings account with interest. And so that's actually great for the users. And one thing that does is it increases the total number of nodes in the Dash network, because it just makes it so that you actually, being in control of your own Dash and sending it to a masternode network, you can make money with it. It makes it sort of more of a peer-to-peer system, which was the original intent of Satoshi Nakamoto when he made Bitcoin. But anyways, like the Bitcoin network has something like 5,000 nodes in total, which is kind of embarrassing. And it's estimated that only 1,000 of them are actually unique people, unique entities. I don't know how many nodes there are in the Dash network, but I would assume it's quite a bit more, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's got master nodes. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about some of these issues that I talked about beforehand. The first one is that it's a young coin, so there's less, like Dash still is, there's only 7 million out right now, I think, and there's going to be something like 18.5 million in total, so less than half of the total Dash are in circulation. That means it's easy to mine it. There's a big mining reward for it. It's easy to get paid in the master nodes, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But it's also easy to buy, because when there's a lot of coins being mined, then there's also a lot of coins being sold, because miners have to sell the coins they mine in order to pay for new equipment. And so right there in the center, I've got that statistic. There's about 2.5 Dash mined per Bitcoin. So the reason why that is very interesting is because Bitcoin, like, there's only a certain percentage left of the Bitcoin ecosystem or economy that you can be a part of, and it's shrinking every day. But with Dash, it's quite a bit higher, and so it's a lot easier to get in on the action, so to speak. And then finally, the masternode payout. When the masternodes get paid an equal amount as the miners in the network. I personally think that might be a little high, but that makes it good if you actually put your Dash in a masternode. And the thing that you have to remember about this is, I think if you put your Dash in a masternode, like, you can't move it afterwards, so it's literally you send it away for a while and you'll get a certain percentage return on it, but this is money that you're not going to be able to move, so it's money that gets stuck in there for a while, but you'll still have the Dash later on and you'll get a certain payout for it. And so that's actually very good for savers, especially because you get the same payout that miners do, so you can make quite a bit of a return just getting a share in a masternode. So you don't actually have to run the masternode yourself. You can send your Dash to someone who runs a masternode. But obviously they'll take a cut of that, and you have to make sure you're sending it to somebody who is honorable, I guess you could say. But that's some of the good things about it being so new, and it just makes it easy to enter. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is its privacy. Again, Dash uses basically perfect CoinJoin technology, so something that you have to pay money to do on the Bitcoin network, and you have to pay sometimes quite a bit of a fee. Like it can be like $5 to $20, it depends. But you can pay quite a bit of a fee to do this on the Bitcoin network. But it's basically, like I said, if you do this on the Dash network, you're only going to pay 20 cents, basically tops. So it's a lot better on the Dash network. But you can use the network fully privately, or you can do it publicly. Again, there are things you want to be private, there are things you want to be public, or things that you want to have sort of records of, and even the things that are fully private, like you can do transactions fully private between you and someone who you're purchasing a home from, and they can both, like, you can prove that you got paid, that person can prove that, or you can prove that you bought the house, that person can prove that they got paid by you, and they can have people witness it, but there's just no way to prove it on the blockchain itself. Unless they already know. And so that's what you have to remember about the privacy thing, is it has to be completely private. And if a cryptocurrency is not completely private, like Bitcoin is just pseudonymous, like that's going to cause a lot of problems. You can build applications that make Bitcoin completely private, so that's okay, but it's just gonna cause problems down the line, and it costs a lot more than just doing it through the network itself. So that's why these second generation anonymous coins are doing so well. Again, the master nodes are what ensure the privacy, so it's actually, the network itself has users that ensure the privacy, and they get paid to do it through the proof of stake system that Dash uses, and so that's what ensures that it'll be private forever. And then the bottom line, again, this goes back to what I was just talking about when I said it's not completely private. You can be traced using the Dash network, but it's through user OPSEC failure, or OPSEC. I don't know exactly how you say that word. It's supposed to be operational security, I think. And that might not be exactly what the actual term is, but what it means is that the only way you can be traced is if you screw up. So generally speaking, you have to, like, if you wanted to use Dash completely privately and purchase a home, that's going to be very hard, because you're going to purchase a home and live in a home. So that's what I mean when I say operational security failures. Like if you purchase a home with Dash and live in the home, people are going to know the home is yours. And so for most things that doesn't matter. So like when you buy a home, you might not want people to know exactly how much it costs, but obviously if you live in the home, people are going to know you live in the home. So when people say that you can use Dash to do things that are very illegal and very criminal, you can, but there's still the same limitations in place on buying things with any sort of currency, and that's one of them. Just, if you can purchase something anonymously through Dash, but if you use it, obviously it's very obvious that you bought it. You know what I mean? If you're driving around in a car, people know you bought the car. They might not be able to prove you bought the car with Dash, but if you're trying, if you stole a car, I guess is what would be more the issue. But if you stole a car, you can say you purchased it on Dash or using Dash and be like, well, I can't prove it because it doesn't exist on the blockchain. And it'll be like, well, I mean, how on earth did you get a hold of that car? How on earth did you get a hold of that money? So when people say that you can't trace crimes using these or with these currencies, that's just stupid. That's just poor police work, my son. Just poor police work. But anyways, let's look at the next bit here, the proof of stake and the proof of work. Now, I put this as mining here because what mining actually is in cryptocurrencies, like usually it's talking about proof of stake. I just consider mining to be the securing of the network and the creation of the network. And Dash is one where I really like talking about it this way because the mining is actually split into 3 bits. There's a 45% reward to the proof of work miners, there's a 45% reward to the proof of stake miners, and a 10% stake to the basically to the founder, I guess you could say. It's to the network itself to be used to help upgrade the network. But anyways, the reason why I like to call the proof of work and proof of stake mining in the case of Dash is they're both performing a function. So what the proof of stake mining does, or proof of work mining does, is it protects the networks against basically botnets, which are basically viruses that will go infect a bunch of computers, use these computers while like they're not being used by people, and so they'll just have this massive computing power, and they try and basically hack into and cause problems places. Well, you can't do that against Dash because of the proof of work mining, and it's basically protected against that. The proof of stake mining ensures that the network remains anonymous. So that keeps the network true to its mission, I guess, of anonymity. And then the 10% split that goes to basically the currency development itself. That's always useful. I think 10% is quite a bit. You could probably do it for like 3 to 5 if you really wanted to, but 10% is not bad. But 10% just to be used to help create the network itself. I think all goes to something called the Dash Foundation, which basically creates the wallets and things like that. It basically works on the internal code of Dash itself. So that's actually very useful. So the Dash mining is very interesting and it's very unique. I think it's a very good thing that they have this proof of stake split here. I think it might be a little high, but again, this is just a second generation cryptocurrency, and this is a security feature that other cryptocurrencies do not have, and it actually provides a service because the proof of stake keeps the network anonymous. Okay, it keeps the network anonymous, so it actually provides extra security and an extra service. And then the final thing that I want to talk about with the proof of stake is that it ensures true peer-to-peer. That's what the P2P is. Peer-to-peer just means that the network basically runs off of its users. Again, I talked earlier about how Bitcoin only has 1,000 unique nodes. Can you say it's a peer-to-peer network used by millions if there's only 1,000 nodes? And a node is just someone running basically like the wallet software and keeping up to date on the blockchain. And so you can't really say something is peer-to-peer if people don't use the peer-to-peer version of it. And basically nobody uses the peer-to-peer version of Bitcoin. So it's hard to say that it really follows the original vision of Satoshi Nakamoto in that manner. The next thing I want to talk about is the low fees. The fee for using the stealth transactions in Dash is 20 cents. Again, that's basically nothing to pay because these are all basically going to be big transactions that you want to be stealthy. You don't want people to know about how much money you spend on your health fees or like your health insurance or on your house or on your car or on your kids' education or your kid's car, something like that. So you do these stealthily, it's a 20-cent fee, and then the only people who know about that transaction are you and the person who you had the transaction with. And then the regular fees are 4 cents. So 4 cents for a regular transaction, that's really very low, and that's very big because again, I think the transactions in Bitcoin, they've been up around $5 recently. I think they're probably closer to like $2 to $3 right now. But how can you how can you try and test out a new cryptocurrency? And that's why a lot of people don't use actual nodes, is because the price is so high. Because when you use not a real Bitcoin node, but when you're using like an exchange wallet, they're not actually moving Bitcoin for you, so they don't actually pay transaction fees. But with something like Dash, you can use it yourself, and it's like, okay, if you have $5 in there, you can do 25 transactions before you spend $1 in transaction fees, and 25 transactions is more than enough to learn everything there is to know about using a wallet, backing it up, sending the money somewhere else. You can learn how to do multi-signature transactions, things of that nature. So you want low transaction fees in any sort of blockchain or cryptocurrency, because otherwise it's kind of useless to use on its own. High transaction fees are really a bad thing. That's why I always was so confused at how it's taken years for Bitcoin for them to implement the Lightning network. The Lightning network is supposed to be like off-chain transactions so that you can lower the transaction fees, and they just haven't gotten around to it, and it really boggles my mind. It's been a problem forever in the Bitcoin network. But anyways, this was also created 5 years after Bitcoin. The reason why that's big is because that means that the mining rewards, the block rewards that are created are very high. And so long as the block rewards are high, transaction fees are low, because transaction fees go up when the block reward goes down, because it's basically miners saying, like, we don't have the hash rate to do all these transactions in the given amount of time that you're asking. Like, we need more money. You need to give us more of a reason to do it. That's why transaction fees can go up. But anyways, so being 5 years after Bitcoin, that basically means it's got a long time before the transaction fees will probably start to rise. It just basically gives it a longer lifespan than Bitcoin. So if you can see the price that Bitcoin is now, Dash should probably be doing better at the same time. That's the way I sort of look at it. And I'm not saying that it will necessarily be doing better as an investment, but I mean, in terms of how good the technology is, it should be, in 5 years, the transaction fees should be lower than Bitcoin's are now, and it has more capabilities than Bitcoin, so it could have a higher price, and so it should just be improved upon everything that Bitcoin is in 5 years once it reaches that level of age that Bitcoin does. And then finally, though, here I'm just going to talk about this masternode network, and we've talked about this quite a bit already. But the masternodes are what create the privacy. So it's basically you get 1,000 coins together, and you put them into certain wallet addresses that aren't supposed to be, like, you can't move them from these wallet addresses. But and I don't know the details, and I'd have to really look into this to figure this out. But basically, these 1,000 Dash in this masternode will perform a bunch of transactions and a bunch of tasks that will help to keep all the transactions in the network stealthy, that they'll keep everything private. The one thing about this is that the more that the network gets used, the easier it is for the masternodes to do their job, and the easier it is for the privacy to just happen with low transaction fees and things of that nature. So the privacy is better, actually, the longer the network goes on. So that's actually a very good thing. It strengthens over time. It gets easier to be used over time. It occurs quicker over time. Everything improves over time with adoption of the network. The second thing about the masternode network is that the proof of stake creates a second defense network. We talked about earlier about how the Dash network is protected against basically computer engineered vulnerabilities, which is basically any sort of nefarious actor who has access to a lot of hashing power that tries to outmine the network. The proof of stake allows a lot of power to be just in the users, in the master nodes, and in the peer-to-peer system itself. So that's a second defense network for the blockchain and for the cryptocurrency itself. If you want to kill Dash, you can't just do some sort of mining attack, because there's already a bunch of people with proof of stake or with stake in the network. And the one thing that everybody knows about a 51% mining attack is you cannot alter anyone else's coins. You can only alter your own coins. So because of the proof of stake that's also in the Dash network, it really makes 51% mining attack on the network unfeasible, I guess you could say. I don't know how it would even work, is what I'm trying to say. I can understand how a 51% attack would work and kill Bitcoin. It would be much harder to do against Dash. And then finally, the final thing about the masternode network is that it's just a savings engine for the users of the network. You just put your money in there and you're going to get paid back just by keeping the network anonymous. And this is, that's just great. That's just a great thing, because one thing that's been missing is because the price of Bitcoin goes up so rapidly, there's been no way to just be like, okay, I want to get some sort of interest or some sort of return on my Bitcoin itself, other than trading, which a lot of people find very hard. But with Dash, you just send your Dash over to a masternode, and you'll get paid according to how much of a share you have in that masternode, and that's just an incredible thing. So anyways, this is just a basic explanation of Dash, why I think it will be one of the most successful second generation cryptocurrencies out there. It already is one of the most successful, but I actually think Dash could eclipse Bitcoin, and it could become more valuable at some point in time. That could be like 50 years in the future. So I'm not saying expect to follow my advice and get rich or anything. But anyways, that's my basic information about it. And later on, I'm going to cover the next two cryptocurrencies. I'm going to cover are Monero and Zcash, and then I'm going to cover a couple more basic things about cryptocurrencies. So stay tuned.